generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Barbara Jean Lindsey is an internationally acclaimed psychic, spiritual healer, author, and founder of the online mystery school, Esoteric University. As the Cosmic Oracle, she is a conduit to the powers that be to answer your questions about your future self, past lives, current career, love. She shines light into the darkness to illuminate what was, what may be, and beyond. The readings and advice given by Barbara Jean Lindsey are for entertainment purposes only, should not take the place of any medical, legal, or financial advice given to you by a qualified professional, and are not a substitute for medical, legal, or financial advice. If you need a doctor, call a doctor. If you need to be expanded, call the Cosmic Oracle.
Hello and welcome. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey, and you're listening to the Cosmic Oracle Show. It is Friday the 13th. Whoa, everyone be very afraid. And in 2018. And it's supposed to be like the bad luck kind of a day, and it all started way back in history and kind of how myths unfold and we kind of carry them along with us through the generations of time. And so today is Friday the 13th, but I think we're really lucky because I have a show for you that you're going to really be thankful that you're tuned in. We have John DeSouza. He's a para investigator, amazing gentleman, and we will be getting to him in just a moment. And before we do, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Cosmic Oracle Show today and for listening to Revolution Radio, because we are one of the largest internet radio stations in the world that is 100% listener-supported station. And we're here thanks to you and your generous support in the past, and we're looking forward to being on the air throughout 2018 and the years to come thanks to your donations. So far this month, we've raised about $1,400. We need $2,700. That's $2,700 to keep everything running smoothly here at the station at Revolution Radio. And be assured that every dollar you donate goes directly into keeping this station on the air, as we are an all-volunteer station. And what that means is no one gets paid for anything for their services. I don't get paid. The managers don't get paid. All of the people here that bring you the Revolution Radio are all of our shows. We have over 80 something shows that are on almost 24/7. And so we are on, and we don't get paid to advertise or do anything, so that we can just concentrate on getting the truth out. So you, the listeners, are a major part of our continued success at getting that truth out. And we would love to have you keep us on the air. And the way you can do that is we make it really simple. Go to our donate at our website, Revolution Radio, at freedomslips.com, and click on that funding button. There's a funding button and there's a swag button, and we make it really simple. Just simply click it and give whatever you can. No amount is too small or too large, and we really appreciate your continued support. So thank you in advance for that. And, you know, part of the Cosmic Oracle Show is about people sharing their extraordinary stories. And by someone calling in and telling their story, or of someone close to them's story, it opens up everyone's hearts for other people to give them the courage to come forward and tell their stories. And what this does, it brings us along on a journey that we don't feel so alone, and we can come together and exchange information and link up and become really a power greater than ourselves to help getting the truth out. And so our guest tonight is John DeSouza, and he is one of those people. And I had the privilege to meet and talk with him at Javier Sandoval's conference in the desert. So we're going to call John right now and see what we can, and see if we can get him on the air. So we're going to add John to the call, and hopefully he'll be on, and he'll answer, and then off we go. So, all right, John. Okay, he should be on in just a moment here. It's ringing. There you are, John. Hello. So I'll tell you a little bit about John. John is the X-Man. Hello, John. I think I have you now. Hopefully. Okay, I see you're on. Maybe you're muted and need to unmute. But I see you right there, and we added you to the call. So let's see here. Let's see. It's showing him here. Remove from. Oh, he's right there. Okay. It's showing him here. There you are, John.
Hello. Hello there. Hi, Barbara.
I'm so glad we have you. I mean, you know, it takes a moment sometimes. You know, there's a lot of energy to get through sometimes when we're talking about these paranormal experiences. It's like a whole bunch of people want to come on the line with just you and I.
Yes, I am rearranging myself right now.
Okay, well, I'll tell our listeners a little bit about you, John. So John is the X-Man. I like that description of you. And he was an FBI Special Agent Investigator for over 20 years and a collector of the real-life X-Files. And I'm hoping that John can share some of those stories with us today, because that's what part of our show, the Cosmic Oracle Show, is dedicated to people telling their extraordinary stories. And today he's with us. He'll be talking about these stories as a leading researcher and a writer on the paranormal. I know he has 3 books out now that we will be talking about, and 1 book in the works. And John was an attorney and an investigator who maintained a top secret security clearance for many years. And with this background, it infused him with an ability to decipher mysteries that are beyond conventional abilities. And the X-Man, John DeSouza, will be discussing it here, and he'll be telling us some stories, hopefully, John. And we're going to just do something really simple this evening. We're going to change the face of the paranormal and our understanding of reality. How's that for an intention?
Wow, that sounds great.
welcome, John. Thank you for taking your time. I know you have a really busy schedule. I know you have a conference in April coming up as well, and one in June I know of.
Oh, yeah, I got a bunch of things coming up, several of them. I believe I have a Contact in the Desert coming up pretty soon, which will be a very large event. I also have a World UFO Congress in Spain that will be coming up, as well as many other events that will be coming up. But it's great to be able to spend a little time here with you, Barbara, and with your wonderful audience.
Thank you. And so, John, can you tell us how does someone from an FBI background, how do you get into where you are today? If you were there for 20 years, did you have these, from what I understand, you had all of these stories and you were told to kind of put them in a nice, neat box, but some of these didn't fit in those boxes, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the explanation on that is that I had paranormal experiences and experiences of alien visitors and UFOs and so forth long before I was ever in the FBI. As a matter of fact, those experiences are part of what motivated me to become a professional investigator, so I could continue the inquiry into what these things are and what they represent and why they happened. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason I became an FBI agent. So yeah, these experiences happened long before I got into the FBI.
Well, and I know your book, The Extra Dimensionals, I was reading into the wee hours last night, and it's about true tells and concepts of alien visitors. So would you like to share some of those stories with us today, since that's kind of what some of our focus is on the Cosmic Oracle Show, is people
Yes.
Talking story.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was around 10 years old, I was growing up in New York City, and my parents took me out to some sort of a party. It was some kind of a festival, a marriage reception, wedding reception. And it was out in New York City, and it was a large event, hundreds of people there. And it was late at night. It was about 1 a.m. in New York City, in a part of New York City that was not the greatest neighborhood. And all the little kids at the party, we kind of found each other. And for some reason, we decided to spill out into the night, and we were all out in the deserted streets of New York City playing. And we were playing Regalivio tag. It got really spirited. And like I said, it was 1 a.m. It was very starry, beautiful, starry night. But there was nothing on the streets for the most part, because it was that late at night. And one of the kids, bigger kid than me, just hit me in the stomach. And for some reason, during the play, and I went down on the sidewalk on my back. And I was just laying there. And one of the kids screamed. He was really hurt. And so all the kids looked at me, and they ran back to the rental hall and left me out there by myself. And so I started looking up. I was face up. So I was looking up at the sky, and it was a beautiful starry night, except up between these two tall buildings. In those days, we called them projects buildings. Mm-hmm. And that's anybody who remembers what that is. It's not a good thing at all. And mm-hmm. So I was staring up, and I saw up between these two tall buildings, I saw one black spot, a large black spot in the sky, in an otherwise starry night, star-filled night. And as I looked closer, it appeared to be like a black ink cloud, the kind of squid would give off on the water if you try to catch it. And suddenly from the bottom of this cloud came some spotlights, and these spotlights came out, and from the bottom of this cloud came out it looked like a UFO disc sort of thing, and it had light spinning in the bottom, and it came out towards me. I saw it coming, and then I was hit by that sort of bluish greenish spotlight that so many witnesses I've spoken to since then have felt that same spotlight. And it just hits you, and it goes right through you, and you just feel like every cell in your body is being examined. And when that thing goes through you, And I just stood there, and suddenly and I just felt like I was looking up at something that was conscious, like it was observing me and I was observing it. And it just felt like something that was a real living thing. I mean, it just felt that way to me. And then suddenly on my left, 2 teenage girls appeared, and they were screaming and trying to grab each other, and at the same time looking up at the same saucer thing I was looking at. And they were in a panic, and one of them yelled at me, "Little boy, you better run home. The world might be ending." And so it like startled me, and I sort of stepped back out of the spotlight, and I took a step back, and the thing reversed course at the same moment. It's like we both changed our mind at the same moment. And this thing reversed course, started going back up into the cloud, and it disappeared. And those 2 teenage girls disappeared too. Either they ran out, they ran as fast as anybody I'd ever seen, or I don't know what, but they were gone. And then I took off as well. And the thing went back up into the cloud, and it disappeared, and the cloud got pulled in after it, and it was gone. And
did you have memory of it forever, or was it something that was unlocked later? Or?
No, I always remembered this because I ran back to that hall, and I immediately ran to tell my parents about what had happened. And my mom told me I had to wait until we got home. Can't talk about things like this in front of people. And so later at home, I did explain to them everything I saw, everything that I had seen. And, my parents weren't happy with it. They told me, maybe I was seeing things because I'd stayed up past my bedtime for the first time, and maybe I just imagined it, and that was it. That was my first close experience of a UFO. But as I have found in many cases since that time, this UFO, this flying saucer, apparently went somewhere and took my information, and some decision was made to visit me at home, because about a week later, I did have an even closer encounter with what I believe were alien visitors. What I know were alien visitors. I was at my home, and it was about 3 a.m. I was trying to stay awake for some reason. I don't know why. It's something little boys do. The young
boy that you were.
Yes. It's like a game that little boys play. And I was trying to stay awake, and I was. And then suddenly my room, the air changed in my room. Everything changed, the environment, everything changed. Everything got chilled. And I felt myself go stiff, completely like paralyzed, and into a plank position. And then I felt hands at my feet and my head, and they were lifting me up, sort of like a plank, but also like a half-filled helium balloon, because it was so easy for them to lift me. And it felt like little children, because that was about the size of them. So I assumed that they were little children of some kind, and they were lifting me up, and then they started climbing on nothing in the air. But somehow they were actually climbing, and I saw the ceiling coming closer to me. And I was closer and closer and closer. And they, like I said, they were climbing up through the air on nothing. And then they started passing through the ceiling. They started passing through the ceiling, and they were lifting me up through the ceiling as well. Except suddenly my forehead just bumped against the ceiling. And they lowered me. They were very confused. They lowered me, and I stayed wherever they lowered me to in the air, like a half-filled helium balloon. And they just left me there in the air, and they examined the spot in the ceiling. And now I could see that these were not children. They were some kind of creatures with strange-shaped heads and eyes that did not look human at all. And they tried again to lift me through the ceiling, and they were very surprised when it just was more bumps against the ceiling, and I would not go through. And they did this a couple of times, and every time they did that, it made me able to move my neck more and more. and I was able to crane my neck around, and I looked down towards my bed, because one of the thoughts that had come to me was that maybe I had died, and that maybe this was a spiritual residue experience that I was having. So I craned my neck to look back down towards my bed, which was far below me, and I was relieved when I saw there was nothing there but crumpled sheets. So I was hopefully still alive, it seemed like. So then after I looked down at my bed and I saw my body was not there, I looked over towards my parents' bedroom, because my parents' bedroom was right off from mine with one door. The door was wide open and I could see into there. And what I saw was astonishing to me, because I saw the same creatures that were with me, there were another two of them over my parents' bed, and they were holding their arms out towards my parents. It looked like they were keeping them in some kind of stasis field, because my parents were in pools of sweat, and it looked like they were twisting side to side trying to wake up, and they couldn't. And they were just struggling there. And then I saw the creatures that were holding their hands out, and they were like the size of small children, but their heads were weirdly shaped. And then I saw the eyes of the one that was closer to me, and he looked right at me, and I looked at it as well. And there was these black sort of almond-shaped eyes with those wraparound sort of feature to them. And I looked right into it, and it looked at me, and I just heard the words, "He's awake." And then as soon as those words were spoken in my head, because that's where I heard it in my head. And as soon as those words were spoken, it was like a cord was cut, and I just fell back down to my bed like a heavy sack of potatoes. And I just was springing up and down on my bed at that point, and they were gone. Everything, they were all gone. And the apartment was back to normal. Everything was back to normal. The air changed back. And I was just astonished. I was planning how to wake up my parents to tell them what had happened. I checked and rechecked that they were all gone. And then as I was planning how to wake up my parents, I fell asleep, just out like a light. And when I woke up, about 8 hours later or whatever it was, all the adults from the house were shuffling around and planning what they were going to say to people about what happened in that home that night. Because apparently they all had they believed they had a shared common dream of being abducted by 4 sort of alien creatures that were corralling all of them across some sort of weird landscape towards a gleaming giant black structure. And they all shared this common dream. They were talking about it, and they were talking about what it was and what it represented, what it meant. And of course, as soon as I woke up, I tried to chime in to them and tell them what it was, that these were aliens. These were alien creatures that were trying to take us, and they were trying to take me. And they started talking about how the attempt that they were had a sort of like a rope sort of thing around their necks of all these adults. There were 4 adults in the home, and these little creatures had a rope around all of their necks and were pulling them. And somehow there was some kind of a large thunder from the sky that scared the creatures. And it was loud, very loud, and it sounded like thunder that was coming closer and closer. It was and they told me it was bang. And then they told me, and again, they heard it. It was bang, bang. And it was this terrible thunder. And I told them, and this seemed to scare the creatures, and my father was able to pull loose from them. This is in the shared lucid dream that they all had together. Mm-hmm. And my father was able to pull loose on the rope and led them all to run away towards some sort of a light that appeared. And that was the way that they got away and came back. And I tried to tell them that light wasn't thunder. That thunder that they heard that scared the creatures, that was my forehead hitting against the ceiling. And I told them that. I said, that's what allowed you guys to escape. It was because they weren't able to take me through the ceiling. And
that is a tripped out story. And
Yes.
I read that you documented it beautifully in your book, The Extra Dimensionals, that's out now, and of true tells and concepts of alien visitors. And that story is in there. And it blew my mind apart, because you talk about the importance of that we're really in extra dimensional time, and we'll get to talking about that. But in this particular story, do you believe that your head that was knocking on their dimension, so you were in a separate dimension than they were, of time and space, or no time and space, or what's your feeling of it now as an adult looking back at that? It's an amazing story.
Yeah, I believe that what I said as a kid was accurate. I believe that it was my head knocking against the ceiling that somehow undid what they were trying to do, these alien visitors. And yeah, I believe it appears, I mean, from everything I've seen, it appears that all the dimensions are connected somehow, that they can bleed over to each other. And because a lot of the work that alien visitors do, from what I have seen and from all the witness testimony and all the anecdotal testimony evidence that we've seen, it appears they get a lot of their work done in other dimensions, where they take us, translate us to their dimension. But there's always a bleed over. Everything appears to, even the purely physical world is connected to these other dimensions of time that are maybe outside of time and space. That's what it seems like to me, anyway. I mean,
and so they can just pop you after they're done getting their whatever they need, DNA or whatever it is they need from you, or whatever they're tracking you, or whatever they're learning. Then they're outside our time and space, third dimension, shall we say, and then they do whatever they need to do, and then they boom pop us back in, and we have no recollection of it. Something like that, or
yes, it is exactly like that. Except that sometimes that recollection, of course, as you know, comes back to us. And I'll tell you something else. Items that we believe are purely physical, like DNA that they may get from us, or let's say blood samples, human materials that they get from us, we think of that as a purely a physical process that proves that they're physical. But no, it's not true, because DNA, blood, human samples of any kind, there's a spiritual value to them as well. They also have a spiritual presence. So just because we see physical items being exemplared from us, it doesn't mean that's a purely physical experience.
That's a huge connection, what you're saying then.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
It really is, because I think of myself spiritually separate from the body. When you lay this body down, I still exist. And you're kind of showing that in your story with, as a young boy, where you're out of your body's down in your bed, but your head is actually banging this other dimension, you know?
Yes.
And so we're the spirit part, that we exist even without the body, but also with that part of, I never put it together that my blood, my DNA, those things are also a spiritual physicality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, they do. And even DNA, which no one would ever think has anything, is a spiritual value also. So these things all, there's I think Emerson said that our physical world is but a poor reflection of what really goes on beyond our time and space. And that's what it is. We are the mirror darkly that's seen through darkly. We are that poor reflection of what's really happening. And so that's why everything that has a physical consequence has a non-physical, metaphysical consequence also. And that's one of the great keys to understanding the entire alien visitor phenomena. And that's why I decided that it was so important to put this in an extra dimensional frame for people to look at and understand.
Well, we want the truth. We can handle the truth. No problem. Thank you very much, And it's just wrapping our brain around it. If we can simplify it, where we don't get lost in something, that we can hold on to something.
Right.
And go with that foundation to explore, structure, make it in our reality, a part of our reality, and then from there grow as a species as well.
Right. And people think that thinking of everything in terms of just physical terms makes it easier. But the opposite is true. Because if you just stay in the materium and you explain all these issues through a material lens and just as physical phenomena, it actually messes everything up because there's so much lacking explanation. Look, I'm about to do an event in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I will have Travis Walton will be there. And one of the things that I want to tell you is that if you go through the entire Travis Walton in 1975, he was a 20-year-old kid in Sitgraves, Arizona, who was with his logging crew. And he saw a plasma UFO, a UFO that was filled with light, this sort of golden sort of light. And it was above the tree lines, just hovering there. And of course, he, as you know, Barbara, he broke out of his truck. His friends were screaming for him to not do it. And he ran underneath this vehicle. And then the vehicle gave off an energy bolt of some kind that struck him down dead. And he fell on the ground, and he was a dead body. And then that ship took off. Apparently the ship found out that they had accidentally killed someone on the ground, and they came back. And they transported him aboard that ship only for the purposes of reviving him and bringing him back to life, which they did. But then things happened that if you don't have the extra dimensional hypothesis, it's not fully explained. Like, for instance, Travis Walton then woke up on this sort of operating table where they did successfully revive him. He felt terrible, of course, because he had been dead, but he did wake up, and 3 Greys confronted him aboard this ship. And all they wanted to do was put him down on the table so they could put him back on the ground and get rid of him. Now that they tried to do that, and of course he attacked them, and he hit a couple of them, and they went scurrying off. And then he starts walking through the ship at some point. He starts walking through, and he goes from one place. And now when they saw the ship from the outside, both he and his friends said it was about 60 feet in diameter. Now, when he started walking through the ship from the outside, and these are indisputed facts because they all saw the same ship. It was about 60 feet in diameter, which is big, but I mean, not tremendously big. But when he woke up inside of it, and supposedly inside of it, and then he started walking through the ship, he walked into a large sort of Colosseum-like area. I'm talking a huge, enormous area. And then he went from that chamber into another chamber that was even larger than the Colosseum area that he was in previously. And eventually, of course, he found 3 other beings that were amazingly similar to the 3 Greys that he had encountered before, because they were similar in several circumstances. They were disorganized from each other. And they would not speak with him or try to communicate. They were unprepared to communicate with him at all in any level, just like the 3 Greys. Not even, that the usual telepathic, hey, everything's going to be okay, nothing. And they had several other similarities. So right there with what I just said, you have extra dimensional quality to what happened to him, because that wasn't a 60-foot diameter ship that he was in at all. It opened up to huge spaces that speaks of other dimensions being involved here. And also, I also hypothesize in my book that that those 3 beings that he encountered later, if you look at patterns of behavior and conditions, they were, in my mind, they were the same 3 beings that he encountered earlier as grays. The grays simply went, again, this is part of the extra-dimensional hypothesis. Those 3 grays ran away from him because they couldn't deal with him. They weren't prepared for an abduction. They didn't plan an abduction because this was a sporadic rescue mission is what it was. And Travis himself says this is true. And then they ran away from him. And I believe what they did was they just ran away and found a different set of clothing to put on because they are extra dimensional beings. They simply put on the clothing of Nordic beings who were much larger and much stronger than Travis, and were very well able to take him by the arms and then march him and do exactly what the 3 grays wanted to do. Take him right over to that operating table and just hold him down on that operating table so that they could knock him out and return him back to where they found him, which is exactly what they did. So, like I said, every major story that I have, every major case that I have looked at in ufology, whether you're talking about Betty and Barney Hill case, the ones that are so well documented.
The big ones.
Yes, the ones that cannot be denied. They're irrefutable because there's so much witness testimony, so much and authentic witness testimony from people that we absolutely can trust are telling the truth. All of these cases have, if you have the lens to look and see, and you have the filter to be able to see these things, they all have qualities of the extra dimensional hypothesis in them. They are not pure, they are not physical experiences, totally anyway.
Yeah, well, and they're definitely something beyond what we're used to here, or what we've accepted as our reality, right? And if we can open up to that, then we can open up to a whole new world here. I remember when you meet with Travis Walton, will it be the first time you meet with him?
No, I've met him before.
Have you? Oh, I would just love to hear you two talk. He's an amazing guy, and he thought he would do what most people would do, on a ship. And I like when he said he tried to mess with the controls to see if he could find out where he was or what he was working with,
right.
and that Betty Hill also got a star map given to her, and proved later that what she had seen was really the true thing, the real thing. And with Travis Walton now, where at first he had said that it was an abduction, and now he's saying, like you have said here and in your book, The Extra Dimensionals, that they saved him instead of, he feels like they didn't abduct him, but they actually saved his life.
Well, yeah, because it's the only thing that explains how unprepared they were to deal with him. They were, and we've seen in the classic abduction cases since then, that Greys and alien visitors they have complete command and control of the subject they abduct. They are able to direct the subject with no resistance. They're able to do everything that they need to do with the subject with complete control and power and command. And these guys weren't able to do that with Travis. The only thing that explains that is that they were completely unprepared for any sort of abduction or experimentation, which they were. They were unprepared. And the reason is why? Right. Because this was a spontaneous rescue event. That's the reason why.
And can we go back to, why do you think that they were not able to take you out of your room that evening? You must have thought of that. Why do you think your head kept hitting on that dimension and they couldn't pull you through? Do you have any ideas of why?
I've been told several theories, and I've seen other cases that were similar as well, and where there were attempted abductions. And I've been told that some sort of mistake was made when gauging my DNA or my blood type, and that they were expecting my DNA or my blood type to be something different, and it turned out not to be. And a lot of people say it functions according to blood type, or others say it just functions according to DNA markers. So there was something about me that they found disagreeable, and I know that's the case because I've never had another encounter since then on a personal level at all.
Wow. It's so much to learn from it. So what I'm getting when you're talking about that, so do you think they have like a dimensional thing that they kind of click into a computer? Oh, we're going to go check on John DeSouza and he's this blood type and he's this, and they just kind of click it in and then that opens the dimensional portal. They can bring you in and see what's up. Is that?
I think that's a small part of the procedure, but the procedure I think mostly functions with these golden retriever dogs that they have out there, which are the genuine, authentic UFOs. Because the thing that I see that appears to me is that the authentic UFOs, the ones that are truly unexplainable, impossibly extra dimensional, these UFOs, they are sentient life for one thing. They are alive, they are conscious, and there's nobody in there. There's nobody inside. These things, they function as a form of life of their own, and they act as like familiars for the alien visitors, like a golden retriever would for you, that you just take with you, or a cat. Although a dog is a better example because you can teach them how to do things, and the cat won't care what you say. But they're like familiars that come with the alien visitors using the same wormholes, the same gateways, and they carry out tasks for the alien visitors. And one of the primary tasks that they do is what they did to me, which is go around and select subjects and then examine them and collect lots of information on them. And then they bring it back to the alien visitors to say, hey, what do you think about this person? What do you think we should do? And that's the process that I see. That's what the process that I see. As far as all the cases that I've studied, it just looks like this is the explanation that I see that occurs on a regular basis.
How many cases have you studied, John? So our visitors know, I mean, you were there for 20 years. So how many cases did you study? Do you a general idea?
I mean, I would say probably hundreds, if you include the cases that I can't really talk about. But many of those cases were exposed in a series that you may know about called The X-Files, because what happened to me when I was in the 90s was that someone got a hold of my summary case files, and I'm alleging that this happened. This is my opinion of what happened, because I know my summary case files were missing, and someone provided them at some point to the show, the X-Files, the creator, Christopher Carter. And I saw, and not just me, but our bosses at the FBI also saw many of my cases appearing on that show. And Chris Carter was actually called about that, and he was told by the FBI that they were going to shut down his show if they found out that he had someone in the FBI providing him case files. And so I was also questioned about that, and I was able to truthfully say I had never provided any such case files to anyone. And Chris Carter himself was able to say that he had just been provided procedural type stuff from retired FBI agents. And ultimately he said, if you tell me which episodes you're talking about, we can go further with examining this. And our bosses at the FBI said, no, that's okay. We'll just call it a tie here, and everybody can return to their activities. And so but a consequence of that was that the word got out on what happened to me, what I was questioned on. And after that, they called me the X-Files guy, or the X-Man for short.
The X-Man, it fits you. It just seems to fit you. And so whenever I see you, I think of that now. John DeSouza, oh, he's the X-Man. And so our listeners kind of know where you picked that up. Do you like that title, or would you prefer something else?
I don't like it, but I'm used to it by now because it's been so many years. And it's happened. I mean, it's been such a long time with it. So I'm used to it at this point. It's fine. But it was not meant as a compliment. It was meant as a pejorative against me while I was in the FBI, because I was told I was demoted from G-Man to X-Man. So it was used to make fun of me mercilessly when I was.
I have no background in any of that, so I just thought X-Man is someone like who knows, like X marks the spot, like if you need information, you have it. But that's from
I like your interpretation better. That's actually much better. I'm going to use that from now on. X marks the spot. I like that.
So what I'd like to talk to, and if you'd like to tell it, we have about 10 minutes if you'd like to share one more story. And then after the break, I'd really like to get into part of your work and your mission now, and that is preparing us for something big. And I would like to really talk about that so you feel like you're expressed in what you're working on in current times. But before we go to that, I would like if you would share maybe one other extraordinary story that you can share with us during your 20 years of stories.
Oh, geez, I have so many. It's difficult to say which one would be the best to share because, but I'll tell you, just for your audience, I'm assuming the people who haven't heard me before. One of the first things when I went to the FBI was I already had a reputation as a person who was interested in the paranormal and who was interested in paranormal cases. So one of the things that was dumped on my desk early, which I can talk about because it's been declassified since then, is a file from an FBI agent who was, and this is from ancient times because only ancient things are declassified for reasons of age. And one of the things that I had dumped on my desk was a file from an onboard FBI agent from 1947. And what he had was he was in 1947, he was a scientist. He was a former scientist, and he had been recruited as an FBI agent. And because of that, he felt this affinity for the scientific community. And so what he did was he somehow came in contact with something that was able to help him with the UFO problem. Apparently, in 1947, there was a huge wave of UFOs throughout the world that we don't even know about because everyone's just focused on Roswell, what happened with Roswell. But apparently, there was a huge wave even before Roswell. And scientists around the world just wanted to know what's going on with this. What are these things? Well, this particular FBI agent said he had an informant that was super normal, which is an old-timey word for supernatural or paranormal. And from the context, it appears that his informant was an alien visitor himself. And so he wrote this document that anybody can look up called a Memorandum of Importance. And it was basically written as a letter to the scientific community for them to let them know what he found out. And that's the only reason that it got out. This is the most hidden document in all of ufology. No one talks about it. No one brings it out forward until I did. And it's ignored pretty much everywhere. And the reason is because it's not convenient for the UFO thinking that has kept us in the same place for 60 years since Roswell. And this document, anyone can look it up if you go to vault.fbi.gov. It is a single document. It's not the entire file. It's a single document that is, if you go to vault.fbi.gov, you just click on unexplained phenomena. After you click on the big button that says unexplained phenomena, then you'll have a bunch of sections that open up with old FBI cases. And one of them says cattle mutilations. Another one says extrasensory perception experiences. Another one says JFK assassination. And one says UFOs. If you click on the UFOs button, it'll show many, many groups of UFO documents. If you go to group number 1, you click on group number 1, UFOs, and that will open up many, many different things. And if you go to page, I believe it's page 22, I think it's page 22, there you'll see a document, one-page document with no strikeout, almost no strikeouts. And it is a memorandum of importance dated July 8th, 1947. And it is the document where this FBI agent says, I have an informant. The informant appears to be extraterrestrial being, because what he was told and what he reveals in that document is about 8 conclusions that he said were told to him by this informant. And he wants to let everybody know in the scientific community, he said, because of who my informant is, you might not listen because you're a scientist, but I still have to tell you because it's the truth. And it says on there, number 1, it says they are here for peaceful purposes. They don't want to harm anyone. So if our Air Force tries to engage them or to harm them, it will be a catastrophe because their technology is so much higher than ours. It wouldn't even be a contest. That's one thing he says. He says they are here because they're trying to find a place that would be good for permanent settlement. And then he says UFOs, basically says UFOs are alive. There's no one inside of the UFOs. There's no one in there. And he says they are not made of metal. They're made of a sort of a radiant energy that, plasma is probably the closest we can understand this type of material. And he says, which has shifting states of matter. Then he says the alien visitors are not physical. He says they come from other dimensions, and he uses the old word the old Vedic terms, lokas. They are from other lokas, which means other levels of reality. He says they change their vibration temporarily to match our vibration, physical, and that's how they appear here. They appear here temporarily as they look physical, and he says, but they're not. He says they are not physical. They're coming from other dimensions. So we are talking. So in 1947, he put out a document talking about wormholes and gateways, not tin cans being shot out into space and carrying things inside of them. And he says, all of these things I know are true because they were told to me by someone who knows. And he said a bunch of other things as well. And it's really worth reading that document because this was 1947, and at the time that he was putting out this document, it was basically shut out of the memory of human beings by the fact that right around the same time Roswell happened. Roswell, which attempts to take us in the opposite direction and did take us in the opposite direction. Roswell basically, I believe, was a psychological operation that was done by alien visitors and by the global elites in order to show us that alien visitors are physical, that they are just like us, that they're driving around the way we drive around in cars, and that they can just crash their car like we could and end up dead bodies by the side of the road, which according to this document is not possible at all. So there's things, and this happened almost contemporaneously with him putting out this document originally to the public, the memorandum of importance. And that's why this document was blotted out at the time it came out, because it wasn't convenient for those who wanted to believe what Roswell showed us in 1947.
And so they wanted to give us that idea that they are third dimensional, we're third dimensional, and what we've been working on all these years and where we're going to be going is that the humans are, and we are extra dimensional. We have the capability of being, and that's where everything gets blown apart, right? And that's your new work.
Yes, there are many agendas that want us to believe that alien visitors are physical, that we are physical, and that locking ourselves into tin cans and shooting them across space is the way that we are going to ever contact alien visitors. And there's a lot of agendas that want us to believe, so that we'll always be looking in the wrong place. We'll always be, pushing this space travel and locking people into rockets and sending them off into space, like that's going to do something towards alien visitors. And it's not. We're looking in exactly the wrong place, and they want to keep us pointed out there. That's part of the agenda that also mitigates for alien imminency, that they could just land here physically at any time. They could just come from outer space, and they could just land on the White House lawn, and just at any moment it could happen, and they could start handing out goodies.
They've already done that in the 50s anyway, right? The 1950s across the capital, Washington, D.C. So that's already happened.
That's right. Well, the capital, Washington, D.C. was one of the fulfillments of what this document said, because he said, don't engage them with our Air Force because it'll be a catastrophe. And we see just a few years later, over Washington, D.C., we had the Washington, D.C. invasion, where we had many of these UFOs that just came in over the Capitol building and over some of the most protected airspace in the United States. And in 1952, Heartbreak.
Heartbreak will be back in just a few minutes. Hang on to your seats. Thank you so much, John. We'll be right back, everyone. Stay tuned where you are.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. Why am I here? You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here. You haven't answered my question. The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation. Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassard.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Hello, this is Maggie Rose McGrath of The Concord Show.
And co-host Marine Corps Map, coming to you on Monday and Tuesdays in Studio A, noon to 2 Eastern.
And Studio B on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern, with educational, instructional, information, and situational updates, often with wonderful guests on the current landscape in the U.S. and overseas.
This is a go.
We are with you, side to side, and back to back.
Please join us on Monday through Wednesdays.
As well as other hosts and guests here on Revolution Radio.
We're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore. We said we're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Thank you for returning to the Cosmic Oracle Show. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey. We want to thank you for all your support and your effort and for being here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you'd like to keep us on our radio station and keep all of our information and the truth coming out, we would love to have your support, because it's your support that keeps everything happening here at the station, at our radio station here at freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. Be assured that all your funds are used to cover the equipment bills and many other things that make this site possible, including the over 100 hours a week that Nighthawk, is the owner of the station, spends in maintaining and updating the site, the station, the network, and etc. And so we all put in a lot here to be here. No one gets paid. Know that all of your money goes directly to the station to keep us on the air. So thanks for tuning in, and you can reach the Cosmic Oracle Show at the Cosmic Oracle Show on Facebook. check us out there, and you'll see who's coming on next and what's happening on the station and around the world. And today we have with us John DeSouza. He is a para-investigator, and he's resolved many mysteries and crimes using his paranormal abilities as well. And so you can reach John on his website, and that is, let me find it, johntamabooks.com. That's JOHNTAMA books.com. And on that, you will see on his homepage, you will also see his list of books that he's written, the Para Investigators and the Extra Dimensionals, which I just read last night. Fascinating. And also Clear Hearers, and we'll have John talk a little bit about Clear Hearers as well. So John, if you're there, come on into around the table, and we'll put our feet up, and we'll just kind of lounge back and continue our talk. And we left you off at the spaceships around Washington, D.C. in 1952.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. It's great being back with you here. It's an amazing event that happened, and most people don't know about it. 1952, the airspace above the Washington, the Capitol, was invaded by dozens and dozens of UFOs. And these were genuine UFOs, the kind that are giving up no thrust, no visible means of human propulsion that we know of, and that we're just moving at speeds and angles that, again, they're just not human. They're not terrestrial. And so what happened was something that never, ever has happened again. And you can check me on this in history. Has never, ever happened again in the Western world, which was an entire Air Force was sent out against UFOs. And that's what happened over the Air Force, over 14 days and nights over the Capitol building area of airspace over Washington, D.C. And it was humiliating, because these UFOs did over and unders. They did loop-de-loops all around our jets. They did face-to-faces, moving what we assume is backwards. They basically let every one of those jets know that they could have destroyed them at any moment that they wanted to. They did disappearances and reappearances at speeds that the jets were just left behind. It was just a very embarrassing, humiliating experience, and the entire Air Force could have been destroyed if they had wanted to do that. Apparently they didn't. Why? We don't know. But that's what they did. They just spent 14 days and nights humiliating our Air Force. And that has never been repeated again in the Western world. We've had, there's been instances of, send out one or two jets to check out UFOs, but never again has it ever been done en masse like that. And that's because of the incident in the Washington, D.C. invasion of 1952. And it was really, really something. And of course, people can look up the report, the government report that was done after that, which was all nonsense. It was from a general who basically, I forget the name of the report right now, but if somebody Googles that, they can see it was Roberts. That was it. General Roberts, the Roberts report. And General Roberts' report, basically what he did was the old government switcheroo, where they basically just go ahead and report the facts of everything that happened, truthfully, which was that many civilian workers, civilian people on the ground, and military workers, military people, and Air Force pilots all saw this experience happening. And they all experienced it. Radar operators also experienced it happening. So there was no way to deny that this event occurred. Even the newspapers reported that these were unexplainable UFOs. And so basically they reported but then the conclusion that the Roberts Commission reported was, of course, completely disconnected from reality. It said, well, therefore, this all happened, but we conclude that there is no threat to national security, and that these things didn't really do anything. It was just something bizarre like that. And that was what they did. Because what else could they do? They couldn't admit what really happened. But they did have to report the witnesses.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you talk about this in your book, where who really is in control. Can we talk a little bit about who is in control here, John? Is our government in control? Is that what they're maybe afraid of? Is that we would discover that they aren't in as control as we thought they were? Or are they in control and more control than what's been told? Let's speak about control.
Yeah, government's in control of some things, some small things here and there, but not on this issue. They're not in control of this issue whatsoever, not at all. That's why anybody can Google NASA cuts the live feed every time, and you can get many results of video back on that because over the years. And the funny thing is, you can also Google the ESA, the European Space Agency, cuts the live feed. And you can do the same thing for the Japanese Space Agency. And they all do the same thing. When they have a satellite feed that is going out and it is showing outer space, and suddenly an unknown UFO comes into view, they will cut that feed. And the reason is why? It's because they don't know what that thing is. And they have been given orders. Not just NASA, but all around the world, the other space agencies too. They've been given the orders to keep that knowledge, to cut that live feed automatically. They don't have to wait for orders, because that's a standing order that's been out since 1947. And who has the ability to give that order? To many nations.
That was my next question. That was my very next question.
Yes, exactly. And the only I should say creatures that could possibly do that are the elite powers in control. What some people also call the global cabal, the people who believe that they are in charge of humanity, who give the nations their marching orders, tell the nations what to do every day. And they are the ones who put out this order in conjunction, I also believe, with a portion of alien visitors, malevolent alien visitors as well, who don't want this stuff to be known until they are ready to present it in their own way. And so that's who's pulling the strings on this. And the way we know that is because so many nations obey the same orders, and that those orders have been out there for such a long time.
And so is it a time game now? We only have so much time before they go to their next level of conditioning of us, or?
Yeah, it is.
Can you speak about that?
It is. It's a very short period of time that we have here because the issue is being pushed more and more. And some of it, I believe, is being pushed by the benevolent alien visitors who are seeking our benefit, who are seeking to help us, who are seeking to uplift us for whatever their reasons are. And so this is an issue that is coming to a head. That's why alien visitation, observation experiences, all the levels of contact are increasing more and more. Abduction increasing more and more. It's not leveling off. It's not going away. It's a phenomena that's just increasing, and we are approaching a time when something is going to break here, and we're going to have revelation, not disclosure. We're not going to have disclosure because government doesn't have it. Government just doesn't have it. They never did, and they never will. Government's just another chess piece being moved around the board. And so the people who are going to reveal are going to be the alien visitors themselves in their own way and in their own fashion.
And would that be where they just come in? I liked what you said in your book. It was interesting, the interdimensionals, where they can only stay in and hold that body for so long, and then they have to pop back into their other dimension. Or are there some here that have been here all along, and that they've always been here? I've read that too.
Well, yeah, because we can see. I mean, anyone can see that alien visitors. There was a time before recorded history that they were able to be here as much as they want. There's civilizations. There's things even on the earth. Throughout the earth, we see structures that were not built by humans. humans. They were not created by humans at all. And we see the same. We also see civilizations, even on structures, intelligent structures on the moon, on Mars, in other places. When you penetrate the nonsense that's put out by NASA, you can see these things for yourselves. And those. So there was a time in the past, even before recorded history, when apparently alien visitors were able to be here physically as much as they wanted, and they were for very long periods. That's what Zecharia Sitchin's work is based on, the Anunnaki and so forth, and all the records, so many
and
records.
the Vedic history as well.
Yeah, so there was a time when these alien civilizations were here and throughout our solar system for as much as they wanted and for very long periods of time. But something changed. Something very important changed. And I don't know what that was. But whatever it was very radical and very universal, because they can't do that today. They cannot be here physically in the long term the way that they were so very, very long ago.
And from what I understand, that is all crashing down, or has crashed down. The ruling elite cabal has been extinguished. I've read that. What's your feeling on that? Or
well, they haven't been extinguished, but they are being challenged everywhere around the earth, and especially in the United States. And so, their rule is being challenged and is being undone, and so they are in a panic mode. And so one of the symptoms of this panic mode is for them to take back direct control of ufology. That's one of the things we see happening in front of our eyes right now, and it is very, very scary for those who recognize it for what it is. And it is. Ufology and the paranormal is very important for them to keep control of, and they've always had indirect control of it, but now they're trying to get back direct control of these topics. These topics are very important because the most important to them, more important than religion, more important than politics, more important than economics, because the paranormal and ufology could spark an awakening in their mainstream, the mainstream herd of humanity. And
you mean a revolution?
Yes, a rebellion in thought, especially, and they do not want that. That's not going to happen through organized religion. It's not going to happen through politics. It's not going to happen through economics. But they know.
Will it happen in mainstream media a little bit? Is it breaking down a little bit, or is that still just as strong as ever?
Well, I was hoping that it was, because of what happened with the Tom DeLonge group. And how they were, and how mainstream media had been ordered to start reporting on UFOs as a serious, real topic. And so starting, last December 16th, when they had their first conference. But unfortunately, now we see that nothing has changed because of what just occurred with the Atacama Desert 6-inch alien fiasco that was just perpetrated upon humanity. And so we see that there was no crack in the truth embargo. It was all just a little psyop operation that was done basically for the benefit of that particular group, for them to put forward their, and sell you some stock. That was basically what was going on there. So yeah. Go ahead.
And you talk about where the group that's been doing this, some of us have been doing this for a very long time, okay? And where you feel like, you're almost about to have a real major breakthrough, and then it doesn't happen, it kind of comes up, it peaks, and it goes back down, peaks, and then you just get exhausted from the experience. Yeah,
but you shouldn't, because there are breaks, and these breaks are real. For instance, even the what do you call this? The To the Stars Academy, even though they basically have been exposed for what they basically were, even they brought forward some truth in when they put forward that first video which
with
shows
the UFO.
Yes, yes, and so that's what happens with these cabal operations. That they always create some kind of benefit by accident, and that's what happened here too, and it could continue to happen. So that's why we have to take benefit wherever we can find it, because even though the To the Stars Academy has turned out to be basically a lot of nothing, as they're standing in front of Mylar balloons, big giant screen of Mylar balloons, claiming that it's a UFO and other things that they have done that turned out not to be real. We still have more and more people becoming aware of the con and about that is perpetrated by these government psyops, where you have the CIA working together with the Pentagon to pretend to be a big revelation movement, and more and more people are becoming aware. Like these Atacama Desert 6-inch alien that has now been debunked in a very dishonest, and really has not been debunked at all. It's basically been falsely reported, and basically we have here a new species that's been discovered, a humanoid, non-human species, and this has happened many times before, but they've always run the same op, where you have these scientists who pretending to do science and doing all this genetic testing on this specimen, and all they really did was tell us that it was a real living being and that it's not human. But then they report, but we decided that it was actually a human being with some sort of mutations. And then the mainstream media took that headline, and without reporting the actual genetic report, the genetic test, which showed 10% of the genetic material was non-human. And then they go and they ignore that, but they report the headline, sorry, folks, it was just a human being. It was a human being. It was a fetus of a human being. And then that gets reported all over the world by mainstream media, by the New York Times, Huffington Post. And so we see there was no crack in the truth embargo. That was all a farce. But the good news is more and more they're not going to get away with this. The good news is we have more and more people who realize this was a scientific fraud, because they did all that. They didn't lie. They just did all the testing, but then they reported a conclusion that had no connection to the testing that they had done. That's what happened. And that's what they're trying to get away with right now. And that's what we have to work against that. And
and we can't tolerate that, can we?
No, we can't, because they've done this so many times. I'm working with Gaia TV now, and they did the same thing when the genetic testing came back on the mummies from Peru. The mummies from Peru, which were these 6 foot mummies with 3 fingers and 3 toes that turned out to be actual living beings. And the scientists, the labs that were given those samples, came back and found like as high as 30% non-human DNA. So what did the mainstream media news do? They ignored the genetic testing on that. And because some of the labs reported back honestly, a lot of labs don't want to lose their licensing, and so they'll just say undetermined, corrupted. All the DNA was corrupted. We can't. So, but some of the labs, Gaia TV, they smartly used many labs. They used like about a dozen labs for their mummies, the Nazca mummies that anybody can look up, and you can see those are not human. But the results were taken by mainstream news, the New York Times, Huffington Post, again, all the usual suspects, all the news all around the world, and they completely ignored the genetic testing results, and they simply reported, sorry folks, 100% human. These are all humans. That's all they are. And anybody with common sense could tell that's not right. a little common sense and two eyes, you could see that's not right. It can't be right. And sure enough, yeah, it wasn't right. And so this kind of thing happens all the time. And all we really learned from the Nazca mummies or reporting is that there are other species, and they're here, right here, and they're not in outer space, right here on Earth.
Right here.
Us.
And they've been here. And that's Brian Forster's work, right? If I remember right.
Absolutely.
Brian Forster's. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and let's go ahead. Go ahead.
And Brian Forster, he was tortured the same way Dr. Stephen Greer is being tortured right now by this false reporting that goes through mainstream media, that goes out, and the mainstream of the planet is like 95% of people, and they just listen to the reporting headlines, and that's it. They don't examine beyond that. And so all this work that Brian Forster did to bring forward the truth, the same way Dr. Stephen Greer has done so much work, and actually he had the Atacama 6-inch alien in his hand. He could have done the testing as an honest broker himself. It would have been difficult, but he could have done that instead of trusting it to the Stanford Science Department at Stanford University that promised to do an honest job, which they absolutely betrayed him. They absolutely betrayed him, and they betrayed all of us by simply they did all the testing on the 6-inch Atacama alien. They did all the testing correctly. They didn't lie, but what they did was they then created a conclusion that had no connection whatsoever to the testing, the genetic testing that they just went through, and they reported that, handed it over to the mainstream media, and the mainstream media also ignored the testing and just reported the headline that victimized all of us.
Yeah, I remember when they first, with the discovery of the Göbekli Tepe, and that whole, I thought it would just be all through the world news, and it just never, it was like they didn't have time to report it.
Like nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Well, can we segue to something else? I just want to briefly touch on it. It's something I've been kind of working on in my own research, is about the part where I had that kind of an aha moment, the possibility of myself having alien DNA or being a part of that history or that ancient DNA that runs within my blood itself. And I just wondered what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I'll tell you this. At rock bottom, and this is the truth that the elite powers in control, the global cabal are desperate for you not to know. At the very least, you have a great deal in common with alien visitors in that you are an extra-dimensional being as well. As a matter of fact, the majority of what you are is an extra-dimensional being, and therefore you have that in common with extraterrestrials, extra-dimensional beings that are coming here from other levels of reality. Well, what does that really mean then? What that really means is you have the perfect ability, regardless, and your DNA is also extra-dimensional, has an extra spiritual quality to it, and therefore it is able to contact with these extra-dimensional beings without a rocket ship that you're going to lock yourself into and be shot off into space. As a matter of fact, in all my books, I always write you have a better chance of contacting benevolent extra-dimensional beings, much more greater chance going into a deep meditation than locking yourself into some tin can and shooting it out into space.
It's true. Well, I know whenever I've had the contacts and I have, it's I could meditate all I want, which really brings your vibration up, brings your communication skills up, right? Because you have the lower energy of your body and elevates you up, so you're in your upper chakras and exist kind of right above your head. If you can vibrate at that level, then the dimensions start to open up, and you do have a whole nother world or worlds available to you within this world. Your physical body in the third dimension, but the rest of you can reside at more places than once as well.
Exactly.
Have you had any? And I think they just show up when you're ready for them, when it's time for you to. And I know I've tried a lot, but as soon as I let go is when it starts to happen and it shows up, and that's because I'm ready for that next step in communication. I don't know if you've had your personal experience with that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have. And because we do have the ability and we have connections with other dimensions of reality. And those connections are permanent. They're there all the time, and they bear fruit at different times in our lives. And that's something that I actually go into more in my book, The Clear Hearers. That is something that we'll have to put on the agenda to talk about next time. That's
yes. I'd love for you to. I would resonate with them. They would probably be my family, right?
Yes,
in a lot of ways. And also that we have extraordinary abilities. I bet in all of your cases over the years that you saw humans that had extraordinary abilities that we have way beyond our five senses, and that we have all these capabilities that we haven't been using.
One of the problems that we encounter when we're investigating cases in the extra dimensionals and looking at individuals is a problem that I talk about late in the latter part of the book, which is that you have people who suffer with implants. They've gone through these extraordinary experiences with extraterrestrials or extra-dimensionals, whether you're talking about abductions or just in-depth contacts that have gone on for a while. And some of these people will have implants, alien implants of some kind. And these alien implants will sometimes cause them to suffer, cause them problems of different kinds. And then we'll talk to them and ask them, well, because of course at the time I was writing this book, the great Dr. Roger Leir was still alive and still doing great work that he did in helping people and removing implants from people. And some of these implants, as I'm sure you know, turned out to be alive, conscious. And there's actual videos of Dr. Leir attempting to remove some of these implants, and they would just come to life and swim away from his forceps. It's just amazing stuff to watch. And as we would interview many of these people who had been implanted, what you would find out is, and I have a couple of these cases in there. What we would find out is that before they were implanted with these devices, and these people always start out by saying they want their implants removed. But as you would interview them further and drill down on it, what you would find out is that before they got their implants, they were a regular person with regular skill set. But after they got their implants, their abilities and their creative abilities increase many fold. And for instance, I give the example of a lady I called Martha X, and she was a medium, sort of an artist, just an amateur artist before she got her implants. After she got her implants, which caused her some problems, after she got her implants, she became a world famous artist, and she had up on her wall several paintings that had already been sold for $50,000 each. Her creative powers just increased tremendously. And when it would come time, she would never remove her implants. She just didn't want to. She couldn't, even though they would buzz sort of signals into her brain that would cause her discomfort that she didn't like. But she would never, ever really agree to have the implants removed. And part of that was because her abilities increased. that she used in her work, and that's just I don't really want anyone to keep their implants, but I'm just reporting that's what happened, and it's a strange phenomena, but it does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, and so do you think part of the work of the, shall we say, extra dimensionals would be to help elevate our spirituality or our creativity, our awareness, so that we can then more easily communicate outside the third dimension?
Yes, I believe that is part of what they do. And also, no one should ever think that aliens are a monolithic group in any sense, because I've seen so many, what appears to be so many disparate purposes, many different methods and behaviors from different alien encounters. It's just, it covers the entire spectrum. But it appears that there are many alien visitors that are benevolent, that looking to help people, to uplift people, to help them. And even I have had several experiences that I've looked into where people have had their lives saved. They've had diseases cured by extra-dimensional visitors that would come to them and help to heal them. And it's just amazing stuff. And these were not, you can't say these were extraterrestrial experiences. They usually tend to be extra dimensional in nature. One of the great authors that's around today, Jason Quitt, who wrote Forbidden Knowledge, actually talks about, he wrote about it in my book, The Clear Hearers. He wrote about his experience when he had a malevolent alien visitor that came to him and tried to convince him that he had cancer, that he was going to die. And Jason Quitt, who has some abilities himself, was able to step out of his body into another, because he was a multidimensional reality, and he was able to capture that creature. He was able to capture that creature and basically shake it up a little bit and throw it out of our reality.
And we have the ability to do that.
Yes, because a short time later, he actually was very sick, and he had a benevolent creature, but extra-dimensional creature, come to him and actually cure him of the sickness that he had. And he felt a tremendous amount of love from that creature. And these are the extra-dimensional experiences that are helping us to understand the real nature of alien visitors.
And who we are.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
We've had Jason on the show before. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And he'll be at Contact in the Desert with you and all of us.
Yes, we'll be there. And I should say, in case they're listening to me, they're always listening, Barbara. So I should literally say that Contact in the Desert will be on the date
first week in June.
Yes.
June 1st, I think it is. First weekend in June.
Yes, at Indian Wells, California, the first weekend in June. And it's going to be tremendous. We're calling it the Year of Disclosure. Yes, and that's because we're not depending on any academies who are selling stock to us. We are depending on each other.
Right.
So we will be there with great shamanic teachers and great truth tellers. And I couldn't even start to go through the entire litany of names. Of all the great thinkers and truth tellers in our modern society.
It's true. Awesome. And I will be hosting the Cosmic Cafe there for the 4th year, and we will have a place where people can come and tell their extraordinary stories, and we get to share and connect. And
awesome.
Yeah, it should be awesome.
I'll be doing I'll be doing my presentation, Real Disclosure Continued, and wherein I shall go through three UFO cases on video that I personally, based upon my experiences, 25 years as an FBI agent, that I personally know are true, authentic, real UFOs. And I'll be showing those on video, and I will be actually reviewing for people the history of each of these cases and the cover-up that was successful in hiding these cases from us for as long as they did.
So we could reverse engineer how they do it, right? So we can, awareness is everything, right? Awareness is everything.
Yes, exactly. And it's so true. Now that we, like with the Atacama Desert 6-inch alien, once you see how the magician does the trick, you're able to just sit down and reverse engineer exactly what was done and how they do it every time. Because guess what? They're going to do it again.
Yeah. Unless we get smarter, which we are. If we get together, that's why I love conferences, is when we get together and connect and exchange ideas.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, Barbara, because there's so many people listening, like I told you. And I am going to also be on April 21st. I'm going to be at George Noory Live in Scottsdale, Arizona at the Virginia G. Piper Theater. And it's going to be a huge event. Like I told you, I'm going to be with Travis Walton.
I can't wait. That's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, and Lynn Katai and Dr. Sky and Melinda Leslie and so many others. We're going to be doing a UFO roundtable, and we're going to be doing interactive theater with the audience, and it's going to be fantastic on April 21st in Scottsdale, Arizona, Virginia G. Piper Theater.
And they can reach this information at your website as well?
Yes, on my Facebook, especially, which is just John DeSouza Facebook, on my John DeSouza Twitter, and all of my links.
And it's John DeSouza, DESOUZA.
Exactly. You got it on the first try. That's it.
And I did want to ask you, I had someone call in. We have a lovely lady, Ellen Essence, and she had a question for you, John. And that question is, are you ever concerned of the possible repercussions of being FBI and your disclosure?
Never. Oh, what was the lady's name?
Ellen Essence.
Ellen, no, I am never concerned about that at all. Basically, the FBI it's a different organization. They're only concerned about rock solid things. As long as I'm not out revealing government corruption type stuff or things, or doing the old whistleblower thing. Where you break your security oath and telling things that you're not supposed to, they couldn't care less. The FBI couldn't care less, and the government couldn't care less about the stuff I talk about. As long as it's paranormal and it's ufology related and metaphysical, then they just don't care about that sort of thing. They just
Fantastic. So I would like to end the show with just the beginning, okay? And I love the way that you wrote about this in your book, that it's just the beginning, preparing us for something big. And can we end the show with your thoughts on that?
Yes. We are at the beginning of the beginning as far as ripping open this truth embargo against what is really happening. In the movie The Matrix, the Morpheus character said, "You've been living in a dream world, Neo." And basically people are waking up right now to the fact that we have been living in a dream world, and we have had the wool pulled over our eyes by these institutions that we should not trust, by mainstream media, by the nightly news, by all the media complex, and even the national governments. Not because the national governments are part of some big plan, but because they follow orders. They do what they're told, and the national institutions do what they're told. That's all they're doing. That's what they've always done. And so we need to pull back from that, and we need to go into the alternative community, and we need to listen to each other and really trust each other. And we can't be attacking each other because one person makes a mistake, makes some slight mistake. But we need to really go into what is really true, and we need to completely withdraw from these systems that are basically just to deceive us. They're put together just to deceive us and just to lead us down the wrong path all the time. And that's the most important thing for people to realize.
Yeah, and so part of your work is making the paranormal normal.
Absolutely, because the time for that has arrived. I think the great David Icke had a great quote that I really loved. He said, "A person who is pretending that the material universe is all that really matters, is all that is real, is like a man in a stadium trying to stand on a postage stamp." And you can't do it for very long. You're balancing and you're over tipping, and it's not going to work for very long. And that's every one of us is in that situation. Those of us who sit around pretending that the nightly news is real, that the political parties are real, that the big game is real, we're going to encounter the paranormal every night when we go to sleep. Whenever we have experiences, and it's gonna happen all the time, and there is no avoiding it. And so we might as well learn to benefit from it and deal with it.
Mm-hmm. And so, as a listener, what would be the best way that we could, as listeners, to help change the face of the paranormal and our understanding of reality?
Oh, the best thing you can do is what the Dog Walkers Rebellion did in the Soviet Union in the late 80s, just before the fall of the Soviet Union, which is that in the Soviet Union in the late 1980s, they found out that millions and millions of Soviet citizens stopped watching at 6 p.m. every night across 3 time zones. They simply withdrew from the evening news. They wouldn't watch it. So they all went out and started walking their dogs. And what that did at exactly that hour, instead of sitting for dinner at 6 o'clock p.m. across 3 time zones, they all went out, walked their dogs, and they noticed each other walking their dogs. So they were able to congregate without the KGB bothering them, because they were in an ordinary activity. They were congregating with each other just for walking their dogs. And they were able to talk to each other and share information and rumors from the West instead of, or from America, so that they could find out, because even a rumor from the West might be true, whereas Pravda News was 100% false. And at the end, they found warehouses. After the Soviet Union fell, they found warehouses filled with newspapers, unread newspapers of Pravda News that were not bought anymore by the citizens. They just had to load them into warehouses all across the Soviet Union. And they found out that at the end, no one was listening to Pravda News on the evening news except government officials. They were the only ones. Nobody else was. And we need to recreate the Dog Walkers Rebellion of the Soviet Union. We need to do that today here in America and throughout the North American continent.
I like that idea. I like that a lot. And there's such power in people gathering.
Yes, absolutely. We need to be out there in those dog parks and sharing our information, and that could possibly be true. Whereas mainstream media, it's always false. It's always false. And, we're shown that again and again. And I'm talking about all corporate news, not just part of it, but all of it.
Mm-hmm. And so with your extreme background and being here with us today, I just want to thank you for being on the show, John. And if you'd like to end our show with anything you'd like to express that you feel like you haven't, we'd love to hear an ending from you that you would like to share with our listeners this evening.
Yes, my final message. I would always at this time, and it's topical, but I mean, it's so very, very important, is that we must not let go of this Atacama Desert 6-inch alien fraud that is being perpetrated on all of us. It is a slap in the face to any thinking American that is out there. The fact that Stanford Science Department at Stanford University took all this genetic testing of this 6-inch alien, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at some pictures. Just Google image it and look at some of those pictures and use your common sense and your two eyes, and you tell me that if that's a human fetus, that thing. And also, do not let go of this, because Dr. Stephen Greer right now is going nuts fighting this, because he was betrayed by the scientific community that he trusted. And what they did was they pretended they were going to find the truth and spread the truth, and then they did the exact opposite. If you know anyone in the mainstream, because the people listening to your show are going to be the enlightened minority, of course. They're going to be the awakened people. But if you know anybody in the mainstream who actually still believes the nightly news that they listen to, please talk to them. Talk to them about this Atacama Desert 6-inch alien. Show them the images. Tell them that this was false reporting that was put out there, that we now have an alien, not necessarily alien, but a non-human species that we have discovered, and it's right here. And that the reports, the genetic testing was real, but the report of the conclusion was absolutely false, absolutely because it was based on nothing. It was based on none of the genetic testing, and people can't let go of this. We have to keep pursuing this, because we've got them. We've got them with their hands in the cookie jar. We've got them in flagrante delicti. They are caught in the act. And they did it so obviously and so arrogantly, like never before, because this has been done before, of course. We all know this has been done before, but never this blatantly. And so we need to go out there. We need to talk to anybody who will listen, and we need to not let this go and keep talking about this, because Dr. Greer cannot do this alone. This is very, very important. That's the most important thing going on right now.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And I had a request for someone, if you could put on your Facebook how to get to the memorandum of importance again. Can you put that on your Facebook, John? Or
sure.
Would you mind doing that? Or
can I put it on yours or put it on yours?
Yes, we can put it on mine for sure. Sure. So in the next few days, just go to the Cosmic Oracle Show on Facebook, and John will have given me the information, a memorandum of importance, and how to go to the FBI.gov page and search it so you can find that for yourself. So someone's very interested in that as well. So that stuck with someone. They wanted to find out more about it. So we hope that we've stimulated you and your brain and your spirit and give you a sense of more purpose in being a part of this whole making the paranormal normal. I like that, John.
Oh, yeah. Very important. And it's happening right now.
It is happening. And so you can go to John's books and read his amazing books. He's a very good writer, too. That doesn't happen every day.
Oh, thank you.
And a good speaker as well. And so go to John Tama Books. That's JOHNTAMA books.com. Check out his website there. Also go to John DeSouza, DESOUZA on Facebook, and check out his Facebook page and become a member there. And also thank you for listening and being a part of our show this evening, our listeners. And to John, thank you so much again for being on the Cosmic Oracle Show. And if you don't go on the Facebook page, if you're a member of our archives, it's like $5.99 a month donation. You can listen to our show within 24 hours. You'll have a download of that at freedomslips.com. So there's all sorts of ways to get to this information and keep this movement going. Definitely an experiencers movement for sure that we're all a part of, and a part of these days. I always think when we look back 20 years from now, it's time to really get some movement going, right, John? Because we've been stuck for too long.
Absolutely. Stuck in the same place by listening to the same people who will not get us anywhere, because scientists ain't going to get us there. They're just not. And so we need to depend on others. We need to depend on real investigators. That's what it comes down to. And
that's what you are, the real thing. So thank you again for having you on our show, John. And I'm going to just, you always say X-Man to me, John. So
cool. X marks the spot, Barbara.
X marks the spot, the real spot of really what's going on here. And that's what we're about here on the show, is people call in and share their stories. And we have another friend of yours, I know, Brattles, and we'll be on next month. We'll be interviewing Brattles and on the show, and I know he's a friend of yours.
Oh yeah,
so
he's great.
Yeah, he'll be at Contact in the Desert as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, well, give my love to your family. I can see them. Cool. And thanks again for being a part of our show, and again, thank you for all the hard work that you've done and really putting yourself out on the line, John.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. Take care.
Okay. All right, take care, everyone. See you next week on the Cosmic Oracle Show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week. Love to everyone.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.